Hey, how are you doing? Welcome back to my channel. It's been a long time since my last video. I kind of feel bad about it. Well, now I'm back. And if you're new to this channel, this is Naga Konada's Dev Tips channel. And in this video, we're going to look at a cool trick to actually animate stuff that is coming into the DOM as a new element, right? Or going out of the DOM, getting deleted. Traditionally, you can do animations using the transition property or the animation property, and then you can animate upon the width and height using translate, and then you can use opacity. You can use a bunch of other settings to actually, animate an element. But what we're going to look at is uh, a step, a particular scenario, an edge case, as you may. The edge case is that if you're adding or removing a DOM element and you want some sort of animation before that DOM element actually goes out of the DOM or out of the page view, it will be tricky. So we're going to see how that can be done easily using vanilla JavaScript. Of course, you have jQuery and other libraries, even UI libraries, which can accomplish this, but we'd like to see how this can be done in plain old JavaScript, right? So let's get started. So here we are in Codepen, and I just have a blank, HTML with some starter CSS stuff on the body. So what I'm going to do is add a button that says click me, right? So this syntax that is actually changing into HTML stuff is coming from Emmet, which is built in into Codepen. If you guys don't know what it is, right now I have a button which is not doing anything. So if I click on that button, let me fetch that button right now. So I'm going to say let button first to document dot query selector. Since I only have one button, I'm going to use query selector as opposed to query selector all. So now I have the button, and when the button is clicked, I'm going to call a function that is going to, add a div, okay, to the body. So the way to do it is that we need to create that div. So I'm going to say my div equals to document dot create element. If you guys know React, so the create element method sounds familiar. It takes one argument here, which is the name of the tag, and then my div dot class list. I'm going to add a class to this div so that I can target that class later on when I do animation. So I'm going to say, my div, right? And then let me add this div to the body, right? So document dot body dot what is that? Append child, and then my div. So and then I want to put some content here, right? So my div dot inner HTML is going to be something like this is a div. So okay, since this is done, if I click, this div is getting added. Let's do some highlighting to that div. Okay, I have a bunch of stuff already, but I'll explain that. So I guess I'll make this one div. All right, and so if I click, this is getting added, right? So and then so this is where the cool stuff happens, right? So when I give the div, so this is the div, I've given an animation here, which is fade in. This is not a built-in animation or anything. It's just the name of the keyframes that I'm creating. So keyframes is the one where we define all the animations, and I'm specifying the duration of that animation, which is going to be 0.5 seconds. So anytime you're adding a div to or any section to the DOM like this using append child, you'd be using an animation instead of transition because transitions will not work in that particular case. So right now, it's changing the opacity from 0 to 1 after the element is added to the DOM. And then we also have something called fade out here, another animation in another keyframe that we want to use when the element fades out, right? So what I'm going to do is we need to do two things here to that div when we want to remove it. We want to remove that div first, and then when it is removing, it has to sort of fade out using this animation, right? So here you can see the opacity is changing from 1 to 0, so it's kind of fading out, and that's how we want it to go, right? So we need to do two things. One is that since we already have this animation on the my div, we need to change this animation value to fade out space, whatever time it is. And then after the animation is done, we need to remove that element. So since we're adding the div here, let me add a click event to that div. So I'm going to say my div dot add event listener, then click. Okay, I'm going to say tag fade out or something like that. Okay, fade it out. Okay, and then this fade out is going to be a function, fade it out. And then let's say event is the event. Okay, and then we're going to get the event's target. So it's going to be e dot target. So now we have the element that has to be faded out. So I'm going to say el dot set property. So the property we're trying to set here is the animation property. So I'm going to say animation, and the value is going to be fade out because that is the animation name for the fading out scenario. And let's fade it out pretty quickly, like 200 milliseconds or zero point 0.2 seconds. And then here's the tricky part, right? So we don't know when this animation is going to end, and it's not synchronous because animations go in a separate loop or event, right? It's not synchronous. So but we can listen to when the animation is going to end and then trigger the removal of the element. So we have to do another event listener. The event is going to be animation end, and then when this happens I need to do, so we're going to simply do el dot remove to remove that element. Oh, actually, there's one mistake here. El.set property. Instead of that, we need to do el.style.set property because the style attribute has the animation and other properties, right? So if we test it out now, so I'm going to click on the button to add divs, and it is adding div. And if I click on these divs, they're fading out. They're fading out pretty quickly because of only 0.2 seconds time for the fade out animation. And the fade out animation is actually changing the opacity from 1 to 0, and then the animation end event listener is getting fired, which will actually remove that particular element. Okay, so this is the cool trick I wanted to show you guys, and I'll link to the video that inspired me to create this one in the video description. That video is actually done by Travis Nielson, which and he does so many cool stuff like this, cool videos. There is an animation series done by him way back, I guess, uh, for which I'll also leave the link to that video playlist as well. Okay, thanks for listening, and I hope this helped in some way. And please do come back for more videos, and subscribe if you have not, and then like this video if you liked it. And thanks for coming. Bye bye.